Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Alex. Alex, welcome to the show.
Ben, thank you so much for having me. Content, something I have a lot of thoughts about, so excited to be here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun conversation. Your background is really vital to this conversation. Let's hear about your background and your career, and then we always ask two questions. What do you love about content, and what do you love about marketing?
Right, let's do it. So I am Alex Montes. I'm the founder of the Remarkable Agency. It's an agency that in a way, shape, or form, I've been running for a good 7-8 years, but this is the first time I'm doing it full time. I spent the last 20 years in corporate or startup land, and I worked at at companies such as Verizon, Bloomberg, most recently Ben Labs and TubeBuddy, where I'm both the CMO and the marketer there. So I think over the last a number of people over the last 10 years, I've achieved over 200 million incremental revenue for the companies I work for. I know we call it content now, but I grew up reading the newspaper. I grew up reading tons of books. I love consuming it, right? That's the main thing. And I think I love stories. One of the interesting things that if you would have told me, honestly, even when I was at Bloomberg 5 years ago, that I was going to create a bunch of content and then 5 months later, somebody was going to refer to it and give me money because of it, I wouldn't have believed it. And when people come in based on content or something that you generated, it's the most authentic way to kind of come in and meet somebody versus you push an offer or something. So for me, the connections that it creates, basically people come in knowing a little bit more about you through your content, is something that makes me really love those efforts.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Alex, you have this cool background where you've seen, like you mentioned, Bloomberg and content creation at massive scale, and then kind of that medium, different scale, different avenues, different channels, and then all the way to running your own agency, things along those lines. So to kind of get this conversation started, I'm curious, how do you ramp up these content machines for production? Like, what does that look like at scale? Where do I start? How do I kind of implement and grow it over time? What are some of your thoughts and pieces of advice there?
5-7 years ago, my main thing was using Facebook ads in order to grow the company. Even at Verizon, where I had access to TV and things like that, a lot of my strategy was paid. That's because I didn't understand that connection with content that people get, but also because there's a delay in content. And what I didn't understand is that content is also not free, right? You have to pay people to create it, or if you're creating it yourself, there is a time thing. But once you see how it works, what happens is you want to do more. So at Bloomberg, I work with the newsroom, which is an international newsroom that in every country has an outpost, or in most countries, there are a few Bloomberg journalists. And for me, it was exciting to see how you have a meeting in the morning where you discuss some of the top things that may happen during the day, and you try to anticipate it, while also, being aware that things may just happen, right? I remember being in the newsroom when January 6th happened, and, having the ability of, okay, now we're going to cover this, is something that you have to plan for, right? So you got to hire writers. There are some writers that are actually thinking through long term. There's writers that are, working just for the one, for the magazine that Bloomberg has for Business Week, right? That is a very different type of writing. So I think a lot of the learnings that I had you have to think through what are the different things that you want to tell your audience, what are the different kind of contents you want to create, and then kind of step up for that. And when you're doing it at scale with Bloomberg, right, it's a matter of being able to respond and being able to understand that, hey, the content that I create, because I'm responding today, that is a 500,000 words. That is very different than this deep expose on Apple that they had, however many years ago, or this deep profile into Elon Musk. those are very different types of writing. And then when you start thinking through for whoever is our listener is, you have to make a choice from the beginning. Are you going to go deep? Are you going to go wide? Are you going to go often? That's going to inform how you're going to spend and how your machine goes. Now, I'm happy to go to the next, kind of like TubeBuddy and how that went. But that was my big learning at Bloomberg, right?
Yeah.
And then Bloomberg is not just doing writing. They have TV, they have radio, and a similar thing happens where they're planning for both at any given time. They hire for both at any given time. They get results and they go like, you know what, this is what's working. I'm going to put more there and then take it from there.
Gotcha. So you kind of mentioned it there at the end, the idea of looking to see what gets results, but there are a million ways to cover a subject. It could be in a video, short form, long form, all sorts of different kinds of content. And a lot of people don't possess all the talent to be able to handle all those different formats. People are really good with video. They might be good with writing, whatever it may be. How do you kind of prescribe or recommend people figure out the right format for their content? And if they don't have the abilities to just hire a bunch of people that can do that, how do you find the right resources to create that content on different channels?
Yeah. So that was one of the challenges I had at TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is a YouTube optimization app used by, almost, it may be 20 million, but I'm going to say 10 million YouTubers. And because we're on YouTube, we had to create all this content. And when I first joined TubeBuddy, my main content creator left. So I had to start this entire journey from scratch. And it was imperative for us to show that video was a thing. But also we have a blog. Also we have social. So all of those things you talked about, we had to think through how we're going to staff it. And we had somebody in hand already that was actually a writer. And he was like, hey, I think I'm better with video. And he stepped up and started doing video for us. But we've learned that we had this gap in writing. And then whoever we found as a writer wasn't the person that was going to do video. And then we had to do editing and we had to do all of these other things. So we hired two people. We had one main writer. We had a video person. But everything else was outsourced. All the editing, all the things. We started out with people on Upwork. That was very cost effective. I had myself hire an editor in the Philippines that was costing me $400 a month to edit one long-form video a week. That was very cost-effective, especially when you're thinking through what is the ROI of this. So even at a very small company, right, you can probably hire somebody part-time. We were spending on a part-time basis. We were able to get tons of videos out to the point that our channel now is 750,000, 800,000 subscribers. But at a point in time, we were only spending $5,000 a month on this. Now, this is about scale, right? This is about a company that necessitates content. Now, me as an entrepreneur, when you ask me that same question, I am better as a writer. So I look for a medium that allows me to write. For me, that's LinkedIn. For whatever reason, I was never able to write blogs, but I can write short form content every day. And now that short form video is out, I'm adopting it. So it depends on the scale that you want to do it, but it does depend on if it's just you, what you're good at, and what your audience is. So it doesn't matter. I think you have to consider both. If you're good at writing, but your audience is on YouTube, you're going to have to get good at it, no matter what. However, if you are a small to mid-sized company, which is where probably a lot of your viewers are, I think there are very cost-effective ways of finding creators. In fact, one of my clients today got tons of UGC creators just by giving their product away. They do video ads, and I find it amazing how we're finding really good creators because we don't have any in-house just by doing that away. So in that case, content is zero. They just have to spend a lot of time trying to find people that are attracted to their product in the first place because we don't have any creators in-house. So those are different examples of how you can do it at different resource levels.
I love that. There are so many good things to pull out of there as well. I love how you're looking at the opportunities to discover the talents in-house, the people that have the capabilities, whether they're writing or video or otherwise, and then really outsourcing and finding those talents externally. You mentioned Upwork and going to the Philippines. Are there any other good resources? Like where should I go to really, do you recommend just those tools? But how do you find like those really good outsourced talent? Because I feel like more and more of it is needed. Businesses are hiring less on the marketing team, so there's more outsourcing. Where do I go to find good resources to create quality content?
So, I mean, a few things, right? So I would literally go and look at creators at TikTok right now. There are hundreds of thousands of creators that are great creators and only have 1,000, 2,000 followers. And that's honestly, I hire some of those on a part-time basis. I hire some of those as affiliates. I hired the top YouTube educator in Brazil, and it cost me nothing. But the reason it cost me nothing is because I found her when she was at 5,000 subscribers. Now she's at 350,000. But when she was at 5,000, 10,000 subscribers, you could see, that she had something going on. That was her third channel. So she kind of had a thing there. I do think that is one way of looking at it. Again, if you have more of a solopreneur kind of thing, and now with AI, I think that if you learn and I guess this is most for written content, if I actually took one of those AI classes, AI Reactor by Lennon Bush, I think is his name, and I've really learned how to get AI writing like I do. And I think that does a fantastic first draft. So that's not quite outsourcing, but that helps.
Yeah.
And now even for my own agency, I hired somebody, an Upworker, that now works with my AI that starts with that. They create the first draft based on how I would write it, and then they send it over to me, to kind of like change it. And that is kind of now how I'm able to kind of do things every day and go to market every day at a very low cost, even though I'm a solopreneur, using AI, using humans, using things like that. So I would like to say, what you ask kids, like, what do they want to be? Like not everybody wants to be a content creator. So there's so many of them. So I wouldn't be afraid of talking to people and asking them like, hey, do you want to help me with my content? But worst comes to worst, there is online.ph, which is where I found the Filipino resources. I do think it's sometimes difficult to find people overseas, but it's a good way to get started. And then the more budget you have, obviously, the more you can afford. At one point, I was trying to hire the editor from Complex Media when I was a TubeBuddy. Then I couldn't afford them. So, but I try. And that's how you do it.
I love that. So we're almost out of time. I want to double click on this idea because a lot of businesses I do think naturally gravitate towards, we'll come up with a strategy, we'll come up with the ideas for content, and then, okay, cool, here's a video. Let's go find a contractor, an agency to help us produce it. But when you talk about these influencers and content creators, a lot of the times it's a little different with a strategy. How do you really optimize the relationship with them to get quality content while still giving them creative control? And how does a business kind of expect that relationship should go? If a business has never interacted with a content creator, how should they kind of start to navigate that and understand how that relationship will work?
I think this is when I go into more of my marketing, my growth mindset. I do A/B testing. I go to 10 creators. I try them all out. Eventually, 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 are going to be the ones that make the most sense. Those 10 creators, I try for them to already be talking about my industry on their own. So if as much as possible, they already like that topic, great. Sometimes that's impossible. I was talking to a founder yesterday. They have a shipping logistics company. It's going to be tough to find a creator for that. But guess what? That is mostly going to be written content. So it's okay. We can train somebody up on that. So that's my approach. I try out a few people. I stay with the people that work. And then even once you hire them, it's always a short-term commitment to begin with. You give a test out to 10 people. 1 or 2 are going to do well. And then you hire that person just for 1 month. And then once they do well enough, if that makes sense, then you hire them full-time if that's the way you want to go, or you stay with them permanently on a part-time basis. That's my approach.
I love it. Alex, there's a million different directions we could go with this conversation, so many more insights, but we like to keep these episodes short and sweet, let our listeners get back to their daily jobs. This has been amazing. Alex, if anyone wants to connect with you and reach out and find you online, how and where can they find you?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is I'm on LinkedIn. I write every day, I said, at Alex Montes. Montas. And also you can find me on my website, theremarkableagency.com.
Perfect. And for anyone listening, we'll link to those in the show notes so it's easy to find. Alex, again, thank you for the insights and your time today.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.